Did you know? Your dreams are not random, not symbolic noise, and definitely not harmless illusions. An alien showed me what really happens to our minds during dreams, and it shocked me. What you're about to hear will change the way you sleep forever. Some dreams aren't dreams at all. Some are warnings, some are messages, and some are doorways we were never meant to open without preparation. Before we continue, like, share, and subscribe. And tell me where you're listening from, so you don't miss the next revelations hidden inside the world you enter every night. Stay with me until the end, because the final truth about your dreams will make you question everything you think is real. Now let your breath slow, your awareness sharpen, because this is where the real story begins on the night an impossible visitor stepped into my room and exposed the secret every human has forgotten. This story begins with a confession whispered in the silent hours before morning, when the boundary between waking and dreaming thins and the mind becomes vulnerable. Tyrese Monroe had always believed dreams were meaningless constructions of a tired brain, but the arrival of Eryndor shattered that certainty completely. He did not speak of the encounter at first because even remembering it felt like inviting something immense to look back at him. Yet the truth pressed against his mind like a weight. Dreams were not private events. They were crossings, subtle journeys into a field older than human memory. Tyrese tried to rationalize what he had seen, but rationality dissolved beneath the magnitude of what Eryndor revealed. Every night, human minds detach from the corridor of waking life and enter a realm shaped by intention, fear, memory, and unspoken desire. Most never realize the significance of these nightly departures. Eryndor never spoke in threats. His warnings came as observations delivered with unsettling calm. He claimed that dreams act as gateways, linking the human consciousness to a vast collective environment. Within that unseen territory, every thought becomes a signal, and every emotion shapes the path a sleeper walks each night. Tyrese struggled to accept the implication that he had been leaving his body without awareness. But the evidence unfolded with clarity impossible to dispute. He realized humanity drifts each night into regions where intention becomes currency and vulnerability remains unavoidable, a truth ignored only because memory dissolves when morning arrives. What unsettled Tyrese most was not the strangeness of the realm, but the suggestion that something waits within it. Eryndor hinted at presences that observe humanity's drifting minds, studying them as if charting a map. These watchers do not belong to the waking world, yet they move through corridors, people. Tyrese felt a chill settle over him as the realization grew that dreams are not a harmless escape, but a nightly crossing into a domain filled with unseen intelligence. Eryndor's presence illuminated a truth humanity never recognized. Something ancient watches every sleeper move beyond waking life, and ignorance offers protection. Tyrese understood then that the greatest danger was not what dreams contained, but how completely humanity had dismissed them. Each night, the species crossed into mysteries older than civilization while refusing to acknowledge the journey. Eryndor's final whisper lingered, urging him to look deeper before the forgotten realms closed around the world. The night it began did not feel extraordinary at first. It carried the same heaviness that had followed Tyrese Monroe for nearly 3 years, the same restless exhaustion that clung to him like a second skin. Insomnia had carved hollows beneath his eyes and threaded itself through every hour of his life, leaving him trapped somewhere between waking and dreaming. A neuroscientist by profession, he understood every textbook explanation for sleep disruption, yet none could explain the truth he silently feared. His dreams felt too real, too deliberate, too invasive. Tyrese had grown accustomed to waking with trembling hands, a pulse pounding hard enough to rattle his ribs, and the faint scent of places he had never visited lingering in the air. He told himself it was imagination, stress, a mind overloaded by data and deadlines. But each night, the boundary between reality and dream seemed to thin until it was barely more than a whisper of fabric stretched over something vast and breathing beneath. Long before Eryndor appeared, Tyrese sensed that something was watching from the dark edges of sleep. He would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, the room still, the air unmoving. Yet an uncanny awareness crept over him, as if another presence had stepped into the space without making a sound. It was not fear exactly. It was anticipation. The unsettling certainty that the next dream would take him somewhere he was not meant to go. The night the encounter began, Tyrese felt a deeper disquiet. His body ached for rest, but his mind resisted with an instinct he did not understand. He drifted in and out of shallow sleep, each descent fractured by flashes of landscapes he recognized only from dreams. A hallway that twisted endlessly, a sky pulsing with unfamiliar constellations, a door that opened by itself, inviting him inside. Every time he jolted awake, the images clung to him longer than they should have. They felt less like dreams and more like memories returning from a place the waking mind was never meant to remember. Even the silence of the room felt unnatural, as if listening. By the time Tyrese finally surrendered to sleep, he sensed he was crossing a threshold. Something had been waiting for him on the other side, patient and unblinking. And, as he slipped beneath consciousness, the boundary between his world and the hidden field beyond it dissolved into something irreversible. The clock read 3:09 in the morning when the distortion first began, though Tyrese would later wonder if time had already started unraveling before he noticed. The room was silent, yet the silence felt weighted, as if the air itself had grown aware of him. A faint pressure gathered in the walls, subtle at first, then unmistakable, tightening around the space like an invisible hand closing slowly. Tyrese lay still, suspended between waking and dreaming, unsure whether the heaviness in the air was real or another symptom of his fractured sleep. Then the shift happened. It was not a sound, not a movement. It was a bending of the room, a soft warping in the corners where shadows thickened into something more substantial. Time stretched, thinning into long, silent strands. Tyrese felt gravity loosen its grip, not enough to lift him, but enough to make his body feel slightly misaligned with the bed beneath him. The atmosphere changed temperature without cooling or warming. It simply became different, as if the molecules had rearranged themselves into a pattern foreign to the human world. A faint shimmer appeared at the edge of his vision. At first it looked like heat rising from asphalt, a distortion too delicate to trust. But as it sharpened, the shape elongated into a silhouette tall enough to eclipse the dim glow of the hallway light seeping under the door. Tyrese wanted to blink, to confirm or erase what he saw, but his body refused to move. His mind, however, remained painfully alert. The figure solidified slowly, as though choosing its form with precision. A soft luminosity radiated from within it, not bright enough to illuminate the room, but enough to outline an unmistakable presence. Eyes emerged last, two dark orbs reflecting shifting constellations, as if entire star fields lived inside them. Tyrese felt a pull toward those eyes, a gravity of awareness so old and vast that it eclipsed every scientific certainty he had ever held. He knew the name before it was spoken: Eryndor. Not a sound, but an impression pressed directly into his mind. Ancient and calm, the presence watched him not with hostility or curiosity, but with the kind of measured stillness found only in beings who have observed far more than humans could ever comprehend. In that suspended moment, Tyrese understood something fundamental. He was no longer alone in the room, and whatever had crossed into his world did not belong to any realm he had been taught to believe in. The presence standing at the foot of Tyrese's bed did not speak with a voice. Instead, a layered awareness unfurled inside his mind, calm and precise, carrying a weight that felt older than language itself. Eryndor revealed fragments of identity, the way deep water reveals its depth. Not all at once, but in slow, inevitable descent. The realization settled into Tyrese's thoughts with unnerving clarity. This being was not here by accident. It had come with purpose. Eryndor introduced himself as part of a lineage known simply as observers, though the word felt insufficient for what he represented. These entities did not monitor planets by watching wars, cities, governments, or achievements. They did not measure intelligence through inventions or technological growth. They studied something far more revealing. They studied dreams. According to Eryndor, a species cannot be understood through its waking actions because those actions are often filtered, rehearsed, disguised. The waking mind lies, it postures, it masks, but the dreaming mind cannot. In dreams, the truth rises unfiltered. Fear, desire, memory, instinct, intuition, unresolved pain, and buried consciousness all surface without the constraints of physical form. For the observers, dreams are the purest windows into the direction a species is evolving. Tyrese felt the weight of that revelation sink into him. Every night, humanity exposes its inner architecture without realizing it. Billions of minds drifting into an interconnected field reveal patterns, weaknesses, shifts, and Eryndor had been watching those patterns for longer than Tyrese could understand. He conveyed that a dream field is like an atmosphere of consciousness, and its health reflects the health of the species within it. The human dream field was changing, and not for the better. Eryndor pressed the truth deeper, showing that humanity had reached a dangerous threshold. For centuries, dreams had been vibrant, symbolic, chaotic in ways that signaled creativity and expansion. But in recent decades, something dimmed. Dreams became fragmented, hollow, repetitive. More people stood in empty hallways. More wandered blank cities. More experienced dreams without color. Dreams devoid of meaning. Dreams that no longer processed emotion but merely echoed the numbness of waking life. The observers recognized these patterns from other worlds. They had seen species reach this point before. The moment when the inner landscape begins collapsing, long before the outer world notices anything is wrong. Eryndor's arrival was not a visitation. It was a warning delivered in the quiet hours of a single human night. A reminder that the most important battles take place in the mind long before they appear in the world. Eryndor's presence pressed gently against the edges of Tyrese's awareness, unraveling beliefs he had carried for decades. The scientific explanations he had taught his students echoed faintly in his mind. Dreams are random firings of neurons. Dreams are mental housekeeping. Dreams are meaningless noise produced by an overworked brain. Eryndor regarded these notions with the quiet sadness reserved for a species that has forgotten something essential about itself. The truth arrived not as contradiction but as revelation. Dreams, Eryndor conveyed, were never random. They were never noise. They were communication. A system as old as human consciousness, buried beneath layers of rational thought until only fragments remained. Humanity had inherited the ability to dream, but lost the understanding of what it meant. Tyrese felt the weight of that realization settle like a slow-falling veil. Eryndor showed him the structure beneath the illusions taught in lecture halls. When a person dreams, the mind does not retreat inward. It expands outward, slipping beyond the narrow corridor of the waking world and entering a larger field that exists parallel to physical reality. This field is not symbolic, it is literal. The images that appear within it are shaped by emotion, memory, and energy. But the realm itself is consistent, structured, interconnected. Tyrese had always believed dreams were private, fragile, vanishing upon waking. Yet Eryndor showed him glimpses of the field where countless minds drifted each night, their experiences overlapping without awareness. He saw threads of light representing individuals, stretching and intertwining like roots of an unseen forest. Every thought within a dream created a visible ripple. Every emotion generated a pulse. Every fear formed a shadowed vortex. Nothing was random. Everything was response. The most unsettling part was the realization that humanity had forgotten this interface entirely. Ancient civilizations left hints in myth and symbol, but modern culture replaced understanding with dismissal. The mind, stripped of meaning, accepted the lie of randomness because it required no effort, no introspection, no responsibility. People allowed their dreams to fade each morning without recognizing they had stepped into another dimension of themselves. Eryndor pressed one final truth into Tyrese's consciousness. The dream field was not merely a landscape. It was a communication bridge between the self and the deeper layers of existence. A species that ignores its dreams, ignores its own evolution, severing its link to guidance woven beneath perception. The danger was not that humanity misunderstood dreams. The danger was that humanity no longer listened to them at all. The transformation began so quietly that Tyrese almost believed he was still dreaming. Yet the sensation threading through the room was far too deliberate to be dismissed. The walls no longer held their shape. Their solidity wavered, thinning as though someone were peeling away layers of reality. The familiar outlines of his bedroom folded inward and outward at the same time, like a hologram losing calibration. The bed beneath him felt weightless, the air strangely alive with soft vibrations humming beneath hearing. Light seeped through invisible seams, not bright, not harsh, but gentle, like the pulse of something breathing. Tyrese reached instinctively for an anchor, but there was nothing left to grasp. The ceiling dissolved into a wash of luminescent mist. The floor unraveled into coiling patterns that glowed faintly in swirling blues and silver. The world he knew retreated without sound, without warning. Within seconds, the entire room had vanished. Tyrese now stood inside a structure that felt alive, though no movement stirred its surface. The vessel seemed to be grown, rather than built. Curved walls blended seamlessly, warm to the touch, pulsing with a steady rhythm, as if reflecting the consciousness of something vast. No sharp edges existed anywhere. Everything followed a natural flow, like an organism shaped by intention rather than engineering. A soft glow illuminated the interior, radiating from strands of bioluminescent fibers woven through the walls. The light shifted subtly with Tyrese's breaths, responding to his presence with eerie sensitivity. It was a space designed for awareness, not travel. A space that listened. In the center of the chamber rested an elevated platform resembling a pool of liquid metal, yet its surface did not ripple. It held the illusion of depth without containing any. Eryndor's silhouette stood near it, still as a monolith, eyes absorbing the room's glow without reflecting it. The vessel was not a machine. It was an extension of him, a manifestation of whatever intelligence shaped his existence. Tyrese sensed thought itself forming shapes in the air, as if the chamber translated consciousness into visible currents. Patterns twisted around him, soft spirals that curled and dissolved, mapping the subtle shifts in his mind. The vessel felt like a dream given structure, an architecture built from the fabric of perception. Only then did Tyrese understand. This was not transportation. This was transition. A threshold into the realm Eryndor had spoken of. A place where thought, memory, and reality intertwined, preparing him to witness the truth hidden behind every dream he had ever forgotten. The chamber around Tyrese shifted with a subtle tremor, as if responding to an unseen signal. The air thickened, then thinned again, and the platform of liquid silver rose without moving, lifting his awareness upward while leaving his physical body behind. For a moment he felt suspended between two versions of himself, one anchored in flesh and one drifting free. When his vision sharpened, he saw his sleeping form below, motionless on what should have been his bed but now appeared as a smooth extension of the vessel itself. His chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, yet the body looked unfamiliar, almost fragile, as though it belonged to a life he had already stepped out of. Above the sleeping form, threads of soft light began to emerge. They rose slowly at first, like warm breath in cold air, then multiplied into dozens, then hundreds, shimmering strands stretching upward into a vast expanse Tyrese had not realized existed. Each thread pulsed with faint emotion, memories, questions, and fragments of unspoken thought. The strands did not drift randomly. They connected to an immense web that extended in every direction, far beyond anything the vessel could contain. Tyrese felt awe break through him like the first crack in stone. The web pulsed with colors he could not name, shifting in patterns that resembled both neural networks and cosmic structures. Every connection vibrated with intelligence. Every ripple hinted at distant minds stirring in their own dreams. Billions of threads moved gently, weaving together, separating, rejoining, forming an ocean of living consciousness that stretched into an unseen horizon. Eryndor revealed its name without sound, imprinting it directly into Tyrese's mind with the weight of ancient truth. The dream field, not metaphor, not theory. A literal space where human minds traveled nightly, leaving their bodies like lanterns left glowing in dark water. Tyrese saw the threads from his own sleeping form merge with the greater network, intertwining with countless others, some bright, some dim, some trembling with fear or longing. He realized the dream field was not a passive realm, but a collective atmosphere shaped by everything humanity feels. Tyrese understood then that every dream he had ever dismissed as illusion was actually a step into this vast web. And the terrifying part was not that he had entered it every night. It was that he had never known he was being watched by something that understood it far better than he ever would. The shifting patterns within the vessel deepened, and Tyrese felt a gentle pull guiding his awareness toward a single glowing thread rising from his sleeping form. As he focused on it, the surrounding chamber dissolved into a swirling landscape shaped not by physical reality, but by the intimate architecture of his own mind. Colors pulsed softly, forming scenes that flickered in and out of existence like memories caught halfway between recognition and forgetting. Eryndor did not speak, yet his presence pressed an understanding into Tyrese's consciousness, revealing that he was stepping into the private workshop where every human dream is forged. The first scene stabilized into a familiar nightmare Tyrese had experienced countless times. A dark hallway stretching endlessly, doors slamming shut before he could reach them. A pressure behind him growing heavier with each step. He had always interpreted this dream as meaningless dread, the result of stress or exhaustion. But Eryndor illuminated its purpose. The hallway represented unresolved grief he had refused to confront, each closing door an emotion he buried instead of feeling. The pressure behind him was not a monster, but accumulated sorrow trying to surface. The scene shifted. Now Tyrese stood in a storm, fighting against violent winds as shadows circled him. This nightmare had always left him trembling, convinced it was punishment or fear without cause. Yet Eryndor revealed its function. The storm was his mind rehearsing survival. The shadows were fractured versions of himself, parts he had abandoned to maintain control. The dream had been training him, teaching him to withstand emotional overload long before he consciously realized he needed the lesson. Another memory formed, soft and luminous. A childhood moment he had forgotten, his younger self reaching for comfort in a moment of loneliness. The dream restructured this memory each night, weaving it into his emotional framework to strengthen resilience. Even pleasant dreams, Eryndor clarified, were deliberate acts of restoration. Tyrese began to see patterns. Every nightmare he had ever dismissed as chaos was actually a coded signal, an alarm disguised in imagery. Dreams were not tormentors, they were messengers. Each frightening scene was an SOS from the unconscious warning him of internal fractures he ignored by day. As Tyrese watched the shifting landscapes, realization spread through him like cold water. The mind did not create nightmares to punish. It created them to protect. Every dream he feared had been an attempt to save him from himself, long before he ever understood he needed saving. The private landscapes of Tyrese's mind dissolved like mist pulled back by an unseen tide, revealing a far broader expanse, shimmering with unfamiliar light. Threads of consciousness stretched outward, merging into a luminous network that pulsed with the presence of countless dreamers drifting through their own nocturnal worlds. Eryndor guided Tyrese's awareness deeper, not with words, but with an unspoken invitation to witness what lies beyond individual memory. The dream field expanded, revealing structures that did not belong to any single person yet were shaped by all of them at once. The first landscape solidified into an endless school corridor, identical to the dreams reported by millions across different cultures and generations. Doors lined the walls, some open, some sealed, all glowing faintly as if holding unspoken lessons. Tyrese recognized it instantly, despite never having walked through it in waking life. Eryndor pressed meaning into his mind. This was a shared construct formed by humanity's collective anxiety about expectation, judgment, and unfinished growth. A hub visited by thousands each night, shaped by the same emotional patterns repeating across minds. The scene shifted. A strange city emerged, built of impossible geometry. Streets curved into themselves, staircases led nowhere, and windows looked into landscapes that defied physics. Tyrese felt a chill trace his thoughts. He had dreamed of this place before, so had countless others. Eryndor revealed that shared cities form when many minds, under similar stress or transition, seek the same symbolic terrain. A collective architecture built from the emotional resonance of an entire species. Another world replaced the city, a vast field stretching beneath a violet sky. Mountains rose in the distance, familiar yet unplaceable, repeating themselves in loops like a broken memory. Tyrese understood these landscapes were not individual fantasies, but recurring hubs shaped by billions of minds intersecting over centuries. Repetition forged stability, and stability forged shared dreaming. As Tyrese drifted deeper, he saw clusters of dreamers moving through identical scenes without ever sensing each other. Their experiences overlapped but remained isolated, like footsteps crossing the same snow without meeting. Eryndor conveyed the truth with calm certainty. Humanity dreams alone together, unaware that their minds brush against one another each night in these collective spaces. Tyrese felt an unease settle inside him. The dream realm was not solitary. It was communal, structured by the emotional weight of billions. And every night he had wandered through worlds sculpted not only by his mind, but by the silent fears and desires of an entire species dreaming in unison. The collective landscapes faded into darkness. Not an empty void, but a silence dense enough to feel. Tyrese sensed Eryndor's presence behind him like a distant star, anchoring him as the world around them shifted once more. A faint glow emerged ahead, forming a doorway of rippling light. It did not resemble any structure from the shared dream hubs. It felt personal, specific, calibrated to him alone. The air vibrated with the sensation of being observed by something that was also himself. As Tyrese drifted through the doorway, the scene on the other side sharpened into clarity with unsettling precision. He was no longer viewing symbolic corridors or emotional constructs. He was staring at a life he had never lived yet recognized instantly. There was a man standing in a kitchen, bathed in warm, morning sunlight. The man moved with confidence, shoulders relaxed, wearing a wedding ring Tyrese had never owned. A woman's laughter floated from another room, followed by the sound of a child calling for their father. Tyrese felt the recognition snap through him like an electric current. The man was him, not resembling him, not symbolizing him. It was him, down to every gesture and breath. This version of Tyrese Monroe poured coffee, smiling at something unseen, radiating a peace the real Tyrese had not felt in years. The images flowed with the weight of lived memory rather than dream logic. Details held consistency. The color of the cabinets, the soft hum of a broken refrigerator, the framed photographs on the wall. Nothing shifted unpredictably. Nothing dissolved. This was not imagination. This was continuity. Eryndor's presence pressed gently against his awareness, unveiling the truth with deliberate care. Humans believed dreams were personal illusions, but some were not illusions at all. Some were bleed-throughs from parallel timelines, glimpses of versions of themselves living choices never made. Tyrese's consciousness brushed against a different Tyrese, a man shaped by decisions that diverged from his own life years ago. Where he pursued neuroscience, the alternate Tyrese had taken a quieter path. Where he lost connection, the other had nurtured it. These were not metaphors. They were lives developing independently across separate branches of reality. Tyrese watched as the alternate version knelt to tie a child's shoelaces. A pang of grief struck him with the force of a physical blow. This grief did not originate in the dream. It came from the realization that this life existed somewhere, unfolding without a single trace of him in it. Eryndor revealed that dreams occasionally pierce the membranes between parallel selves, allowing consciousness to momentarily witness what it might have become. The bleed-throughs occur during periods of emotional collapse, transition, or intense longing when the boundaries weaken. The scene shifted to another timeline where Tyrese walked through a university campus, older, wearing a ring on a necklace instead of a finger. This version carried a sorrow he recognized deeply. The differences were subtle yet profound. Each timeline showed a variation shaped by diverging choices, none symbolic, none crafted by imagination. They were as real as the waking world he had always assumed was singular. A third parallel emerged, showing Tyrese inside a laboratory leading a groundbreaking discovery. His demeanor was hardened, his posture rigid, his eyes exhausted. In this branch he had sacrificed personal connection entirely for achievement. Eryndor illuminated the truth behind these glimpses. The dream field is not limited to one timeline. Consciousness is porous. When a sleeper enters deep dreaming, the mind can slip through cracks, improbability, and witness fragments of lives unfolding beside their own. These visions were not meant to torment. They served as mirrors reflecting the multiplicity of the self. Each parallel Tyrese represented a different evolution of the same soul navigating infinite crossroads. As Tyrese absorbed this revelation, an emotion rose within him that felt older than memory. It was the understanding that his life was not a single path but one thread woven among countless others. The dreams he once dismissed as fantasy had been invitations to witness the complexity of his own existence. Eryndor's silent presence wrapped around the moment with quiet gravity. There was no warning, no threat, only the weight of truth. Tyrese realized that every time he dreamed of another version of himself, he had been brushing against a life he once could have lived, and each glimpse carried a message only he could interpret. The visions of parallel selves dissolved like mist, scattering under an unseen current, leaving Tyrese suspended in a dim expanse of shifting shadows and faint echoes. The dream field around him grew quieter, heavier, as if the space itself were holding its breath. He sensed Eryndor's presence deepen, not moving closer but expanding, preparing him for a truth far more unsettling than the ones he had already seen. Up until this point, everything Tyrese had witnessed could be traced back to himself or to the collective unconscious of humanity. But the dream field was not an empty chamber reserved for human minds alone. It was inhabited. The first presence emerged as a soft radiance forming in the distance. A figure shaped of gold and pale white light approached with slow, fluid movement. It did not possess a face, yet Tyrese felt an unmistakable calm emanating from it. Eryndor let the truth settle into Tyrese's awareness. These were lumen guides, beings that exist in the in-between layers, assisting minds navigating trauma, transitions, or thresholds of awakening. Humanity had always sensed them, often describing them as angels, ancestors, or unnamed protectors. They were not human. Nor were they illusions. They were drawn to emotional resonance, appearing most often during dreams of crisis, to redirect a collapsing mind toward balance. Tyrese felt their presence like a warm current passing gently through him. But the warmth lasted only a moment before Eryndor shifted his attention toward a second category of presence. Neutral watchers drifted into view like silhouettes carved from faint starlight, neither dark nor bright. They observed without interacting, lingering at the periphery of dreams. Their eyes held no emotion, no judgment. They simply witnessed. Tyrese sensed that these entities recorded patterns, perhaps for reasons beyond human comprehension. Some appeared in human dreams as strangers in crowds, silent figures in hallways, or blurred faces in the distance. Their purpose was not guidance, but observation. They kept their distance, neither benevolent nor malicious. But the third presence emerged from the shadows, like a living wound in the fabric of the dream field. A shape curled at the edge of perception, hunched and trembling, feeding on something Tyrese could not see. Its form shifted unpredictably, dissolving into oily smoke and reassembling into distorted anatomy. At first he sensed fear, but then realized the fear was not his. It was emitting from the creature itself, drawn from fragments of nightmares. These were the nightmare feeders, parasitic entities that survive on emotional discharge. They appeared in dreams as monsters, pursuers, faceless distortions, tapping into fear not to torment, but to sustain themselves. They were attracted to minds weakened by trauma, exhaustion, or suppression. Eryndor revealed that humanity's growing emotional numbness had made these creatures more desperate, pushing them to cling more aggressively to any dream carrying fear or unresolved turmoil. Tyrese felt an involuntary shiver as the creature pressed closer to the boundary of his awareness, pulsing with hunger. It never crossed the line. Eryndor's presence held it back like an unseen barrier. Yet Tyrese sensed that in normal dreams, without guidance, these entities lingered much closer than humans realized. The dream field was not an empty terrain shaped solely by human consciousness. It was an ecosystem. Luminous guides, silent watchers, and darker feeders each played a role within the invisible landscape. Some helped, some observed, and some survived by consuming the emotional residue humanity left behind. Tyrese understood then that not every dream came from within. Some came from the things waiting patiently at the edges of sleep, hoping for the moment a mind drifted just deeply enough for them to slip inside. The lingering shapes of the dream entities dissolved into a muted haze as the chamber around Tyrese shifted again, the dream field readjusting itself with unnerving precision. A subtle heaviness settled into the atmosphere, not threatening but solemn, as if the space was preparing to reveal truths most humans avoid even in waking life. Tyrese felt the temperature dip slightly, a symbolic invitation to descend into a colder region of his subconscious. Eryndor's presence loomed behind him, steady and unshakable, guiding him into the territory where nightmares were born. A faint rumble echoed through the field, and scenes began to form, not gently this time, but with force, pulling Tyrese directly into the center of experiences he had spent years trying to forget. The first nightmare reappeared, the endless hallway, the doors slamming, the oppressive pressure behind him. Tyrese braced for the familiar dread, but Eryndor filtered the experience, lifting the terror long enough for Tyrese to see what lay beneath it. The hallway was not a threat, it was a map. Each door represented a moment he had avoided processing, sealed tightly to prevent the release of pain he had suppressed since childhood. The pressure did not chase him. It pushed him toward truth, urging him to confront what he had buried. This nightmare had been an alarm, not a punishment. The scene shifted abruptly to another recurring nightmare. Tyrese found himself trapped in a submerged car, water rising rapidly as he fought desperately to escape. The weight of panic always jolted him awake before he drowned. But now, with Eryndor stripping away the emotional distortion, Tyrese saw the symbolism with painful clarity. The flooding car was not about death, it was about overwhelm. The dream reflected the emotional suffocation he lived with daily, pretending stability while drowning internally. His mind had tried again and again to reveal the pressure he refused to acknowledge. Another nightmare surfaced. Tyrese, standing in a burning house, flames reaching toward him while he remained frozen, unable to move. He had always assumed the dream represented fear or destruction, but Eryndor revealed its true meaning. Fire was transformation, the burning of old identities he clung to out of habit. The paralysis was not helplessness, it was resistance. Tyrese feared changing more than he feared pain. His subconscious had been signaling that the life he maintained no longer aligned with the truth buried beneath his routines. The dream field trembled slightly as yet another nightmare rose from its depths. Tyrese was standing on a cliff at night, staring into a void that stretched infinitely outward. The dream terrified him because the void seemed alive, as if it wanted to pull him in. Now, he saw it differently. The void was potential, the part of himself he never explored. His mind was urging him toward expansion, but he mistook it for danger. This was the nature of nightmares. They used intense imagery not to harm, but to communicate urgency when softer messages went ignored. Eryndor's insight pressed deeper. Nightmares were often the mind's final attempt to deliver truth when every other sign had been dismissed. Emotional overload, unresolved trauma, suppressed desires, spiritual misalignment, unspoken fear of failure, unexpressed longing for change. All of these manifested as dream signals designed to wake the dreamer to the reality they were avoiding. Every nightmare Tyrese endured had been his mind's attempt to save him. He had mistaken warnings for punishment. As the nightmares dissolved, Tyrese sensed an ache within himself that felt sharper than fear. Regret. Years of distress he had ignored were never meant to torment him. They were messages, and he had silenced them without understanding they were the only voice brave enough to tell him the truth about himself. The remnants of Tyrese's nightmares evaporated like smoke fading into a starless sky, leaving behind a stillness that felt almost sacred. The dream field no longer pulsed with urgency but shifted into a quieter rhythm, as if the realm itself recognized he had crossed an inner threshold. Eryndor's presence grew softer, not weakened but intentionally dimmed, giving space for something else to rise within Tyrese. A subtle invitation emerged from the field, calling him toward a new layer of awareness he had touched before but never fully understood. Light gathered around him in thin strands, weaving themselves into a circular boundary. The moment he stepped inside, the atmosphere changed. The space felt responsive, alert, as though it were listening to his thoughts. Tyrese felt a familiar sensation bloom in his mind, something he had experienced only a handful of times in his life. It was the quiet moment in certain dreams when he realized he was dreaming. Those fleeting instants where he sensed the fabric of reality had loosened just enough to reveal its illusion. He had always woken too quickly, overwhelmed by the shock of awareness. But now, guided by Eryndor's steady influence, that awareness expanded rather than collapsed. The scene around him shifted, not randomly but in direct response to his focus. When he thought of light, the darkness brightened. When he imagined a landscape, distant mountains materialized at the edges of perception. With every thought, the dream field reshaped itself, subtly bending toward whatever intention he held. Eryndor impressed the truth upon him without sound. Lucid dreaming was not a trick of the mind, nor a glitch in sleep. It was the earliest stage of conscious evolution, a rehearsal for what awaits beyond physical life. In lucidity, the mind first learns that reality is not fixed. It is pliable, responsive, a canvas shaped by thought rather than matter. Tyrese felt power bloom through him as he experimented. He imagined movement, and space folded to accommodate him. He envisioned rising upward, and the field lifted him without effort. The sensation was not like flying in a dream. It was more precise, more obedient, a direct conversation between intention and environment. The realization struck him with gentle shock. The dream field did not resist. It allowed itself to be shaped because it recognized awareness. Consciousness was the key. Without awareness, the dream functioned automatically. But with awareness, the dream bent willingly. Eryndor revealed that only a small portion of humanity experiences lucidity, and even fewer understand its significance. Most treat it as entertainment or anomaly. But ancient civilizations viewed lucid dreaming as a rite of passage, a doorway through which the mind learns to govern itself. In waking life, humans are bound by physical laws, but in lucidity, those laws dissolve, revealing the deeper truth that consciousness is not contained by the body. It is the architect of experience. Tyrese understood then that lucidity was not an accident. It was an invitation. The dream field offered training grounds where consciousness learned to create without fear, to confront without paralysis, to expand without breaking. The more he held awareness, the more the dream field responded with clarity and structure, as if guiding him toward mastery. And he sensed that what he practiced here was preparing him for something far greater than dreams. Lucid dreams were humanity's first glimpse of its true nature. A reminder that the walls of reality were never solid, only treated as such. And for the first time, Tyrese felt the quiet thrill of evolution stirring inside him. The dream field shifted once more, the luminous strands dimming into muted tones as Tyrese felt himself sinking into a deeper layer of understanding. The landscape around him softened into a hazy expanse where nothing held a definite shape, as though the realm itself were exhaling. Eryndor's presence remained steady at the edge of his perception, preparing him for a truth far more intimate than anything he had seen before. The space darkened, not with menace, but with a weight that hinted at hidden battles fought in silence. A faint vibration rippled beneath Tyrese's awareness, and the chamber around him transformed into a vision of his own sleeping body lying motionless in bed. Yet this time, it was not peaceful. Threads of energy tangled around his form, flickering like static, pulling and twisting with erratic rhythm. He saw shadows of emotion, anger, grief. Suppressed fear coiled tightly around him, as though trying to escape but finding no outlet. Eryndor revealed the truth with gentle clarity. Human exhaustion upon waking is rarely caused by physical fatigue. It is the residue of battles fought in the unseen layers of the mind. Tyrese watched as one of the emotional shadows ruptured outward, creating a shockwave through the dream field. It resembled an explosion of old memories, fragments of conversations, moments he had tucked away instead of processing. Those fragments collided with each other, creating storms that raged over his sleeping form. His mind had been attempting to repair itself each night. But without his cooperation during waking hours, the repair became a war rather than restoration. He saw how his refusal to confront feelings turned sleep into an arena where unspoken truths clashed in endless loops. Another layer emerged. This one carried the imprint of external energy. Tyrese saw silhouettes of strangers from his waking life, people he had passed in crowded hallways, patients in distress, individuals in pain. Their emotional signatures clung to him like smoke, absorbed unconsciously during the day. He realized that every interaction left an imprint, and the dream field attempted to cleanse those energies during sleep. But when the load became too heavy, the cleansing shifted into struggle, draining him rather than restoring him. A third vision revealed internal conflict, represented by overlapping versions of himself. One carried exhaustion, another held ambition, another radiated numbness. These fragments pulled in different directions, unable to align. During sleep, these conflicting selves attempted to reconcile, tearing through Tyrese's energy in the process. He saw scenes where aspects of himself argued silently in the dream field, each demanding dominance, each refusing to yield. This fragmentation consumed immense energy, leaving him depleted by morning. Eryndor impressed a final understanding upon him. Not all rest is rest. Sleep becomes restorative only when the emotional body is allowed to breathe, when the mind is not burdened with repressed tension, when external energies are released instead of stored, and when inner conflict is not ignored but acknowledged. The dream field will always attempt to heal, but healing requires cooperation. Without it, sleep becomes warfare, fought in the dark. Tyrese felt a heaviness settle into him, not fear but recognition. His exhaustion had never been random. It had been a signal, a message telling him that something inside was breaking under the weight of silence. And for the first time, he understood that healing did not begin in dreams. It began with facing what dreams had been trying to show him all along. The dream field dimmed into a muted twilight, the air thick with a tension unlike anything Tyrese had felt before. It was not the tension of fear, but of distortion, as though something in the realm had been bent out of shape by forces that did not belong here. Eryndor guided him into a corridor made of shifting light, each ripple revealing fragments of humanity's collective sleep. Tyrese sensed a heaviness, a kind of static, clinging to the edges of consciousness, and soon realized he was about to confront a truth that humans rarely acknowledge. Modern life had not only infiltrated the waking world, it had invaded dreams. The first distortion appeared in the form of a glowing screen hovering in the dream field, pulsing with sharp blue and white light. Tyrese recognized it instantly: phones, tablets, monitors, the endless glow humans stared into each day. Eryndor revealed that these lights did not simply affect sleep cycles. They etched themselves into the mind, disrupting the natural descent into dreaming. The brain, overstimulated and burdened by constant input, carried the chaotic patterns of screens directly into the dream field. Tyrese watched as streams of rapid images collided with dream structures, fracturing them into shards. The mind was never meant to process such relentless stimulation. Another distortion emerged, this one shaped like waves of noise. Tyrese recognized it as overstimulation from the waking world. The constant barrage of notifications, advertisements, rapid information, and emotional triggers had saturated human attention so thoroughly that the mind no longer slipped gently into dreams. Instead, it crashed into them with the residue of unfinished thoughts and unresolved tension. In the dream field, this tension crystallized into fragmented dream patterns, chaotic loops, and restless sequences that drained energy instead of restoring it. A darker layer surfaced next. Chronic stress manifested as a tightening net around the sleeping form of a human. Tyrese watched as the net constricted with every anxious thought carried into the night. Stress hormones that once spiked during rare emergencies now flowed constantly in millions of bodies, preventing the deep descent required for meaningful dreaming. The dream field struggled to break through the barrier, unable to deliver clarity or healing. Dreams became shallow, distorted, and incomplete, leaving the dreamer half-rested and half-haunted. Fear appeared as its own entity, not a creature but a dense fog that seeped into the dream field. World events, media, personal anxieties, silent dread about the future fear had grown into a global atmosphere. Tyrese saw how this fog altered dream landscapes, turning neutral scenes into nightmares, suppressing guidance dreams, and amplifying imagined threats. Fear conditioned the mind to seek danger even where none existed, flooding sleep with distorted imagery that felt real enough to leave wounds. The most startling revelation came when Tyrese saw how modern life timed itself against human biology. Artificial schedules forced people to sleep at hours misaligned with their natural rhythms. Artificial lighting tricked the brain into resisting rest. Artificial urgency kept the mind alert long after the body begged for stillness. All of it interfered with the bridges that led into the dream field. The interference was not metaphorical. It was visible here as fractures, glitches, collapses of structure. Eryndor allowed Tyrese to witness one final distortion. A person falling asleep with a device still in hand, mind loaded with noise, fear, stress, and digital residue. The dream field tried to reach them, offering the usual pathways. But the pathways flickered, destabilized, bending under the weight of interference. The person slipped into unconsciousness, but not into dreams. They entered a limbo of restless fragments, unable to heal, unable to process, unable to awaken refreshed. Tyrese felt a chill ripple through him as the truth settled into place. Modern life was not just exhausting humanity, it was hijacking the dream state entirely. Sleep was no longer sanctuary. For millions, it had become a battlefield shaped by forces they willingly brought into their minds each day. And without dreams, the human psyche drifted further from balance, further from clarity, further from itself. The dream field brightened into a soft, radiant glow, unlike the dense and distorted layers Tyrese had witnessed before. The space around him felt lighter, warmer, almost playful, as though touched by an innocence untouched by the burdens of adulthood. Eryndor guided him into this new region, and immediately Tyrese sensed that the rules here were different. The currents of energy flowed more freely, colors shifted more vividly, and the entire field pulsed with a purity he had never encountered in his own dreams. It took him only moments to understand why. This was the realm shaped by the consciousness of children. Images appeared like floating bubbles, each containing a child sleeping peacefully. Yet, unlike adults, whose dream threads were tangled by stress and suppression, children's dream threads shimmered with fluidity and openness. Their minds entered the dream field without resistance, without filters, without fear. Tyrese watched as one child stepped effortlessly into a luminous landscape where color moved like wind. She approached a radiant being whose entire form pulsated with gentle light. The child interacted without hesitation, touching the being's hand, laughing, and absorbing knowledge through pure presence. There were no words, no barriers. The connection was direct. Another vision revealed a child meeting a parallel version of themselves. The other self was older, more confident, standing in a meadow alive with shifting symbols. The two versions interacted effortlessly, exchanging understanding that transcended language. Eryndor revealed that children naturally access parallel threads of their consciousness before adults teach them to reject anything that cannot be explained rationally. Children's minds were not limited by the rigid boundaries adulthood imposes. They could move through timelines like stepping stones. Tyrese observed yet another child soaring over a vast dream realm, bending the environment with simple intention. Mountains folded, rivers changed course, and stars rearranged themselves as the child's imagination interacted with the field. It was lucid, dreaming in its purest form, unburdened by doubt. Children did not need training. They were born with full access before the world convinced them to forget. Eryndor guided Tyrese deeper into this luminous region. He saw children receiving messages from guides, insights about their future personalities, warnings encoded in gentle imagery, even glimpses of past life residue expressing itself through symbolic scenes. Tyrese realized that what adults dismiss as nonsense or imagination were communications from deeper layers of consciousness. Children's minds were still close to the threshold between physical life and the vastness that existed before birth. Dreams served as bridges, connecting them to truths adults struggled to perceive. But the beauty carried a shadow. As Tyrese watched, he saw how the brilliance dimmed over time. A child who once floated effortlessly began to sink. A child who once met luminous beings began experiencing fragmented dreams. Another child's ability to manipulate the dream realm faded until the landscape hardened into the same rigid forms Tyrese recognized from the dreams of adults. Eryndor revealed the cause. Society conditioned children to disconnect. Parents dismissed their experiences as fantasy. Schools demanded conformity, logic, and structure. Fear of ridicule silenced them. Gradually, the dream gates closed. Tyrese felt a sorrowful weight as he realized humanity unknowingly shut down the most powerful access point to the dream field. Children lost their natural abilities not because they outgrew them, but because the world taught them to abandon them. And with each generation, the collective link weakened further. Yet Eryndor emphasized that the abilities were never destroyed. They were only forgotten, hidden beneath layers of conditioning, waiting to be reawakened. Tyrese watched one final vision, a child whispering her dream to an adult who smiled, not dismissing but listening. The child's dream thread brightened again, showing that even a single moment of validation could preserve access. The dream field shimmered with possibility. Tyrese realized then that children were not just dreamers. They were the last living reminders of what humanity once was and what it could become again. If only it remembered how to dream with purity instead of fear. The dream field darkened into a deep, velvety blue, the kind that existed only moments before dawn. Tyrese felt the shift immediately. This was not the realm of personal dreams or childhood visions. The air here carried a gravity that pressed gently against his awareness, as though the space itself required reverence. Eryndor's presence expanded behind him, not in dominance, but in preparation, signaling that Tyrese was stepping into one of the most misunderstood regions of human dreaming. A faint hum pulsed through the field, and thin strands of light stretched outward into a vast horizon. These strands were not memories or emotions. They were timelines. Each one vibrated with its own frequency, some bright, some dim, some erratic, and others unnervingly still. Tyrese sensed instantly that these were not metaphors. They were real possibilities. Eryndor impressed the truth upon him. Linear time was a waking constraint, not a universal law. In dreams, consciousness slipped free of that structure, navigating reality in a way the physical mind could not comprehend. A vision rose before Tyrese. It was himself years younger, standing at the edge of a street moments before a collision between two cars. He remembered dreaming about this scene long before it happened. At the time, he dismissed it as coincidence. Now, he saw the truth. His dream had not been symbolic. It had been a preview, not destiny, but probability. The dream field had shown him the outcome of converging choices before they manifested in waking reality. The scene dissolved, replaced by another. A woman in a hospital room, crying over news she had not yet received. Tyrese recognized her from one of his early nightmares. He had forgotten the dream until months later, when she walked into his clinic with the same expression, carrying the same grief he had witnessed. Eryndor revealed that prophetic dreams were not predictions carved in stone. They were glimpses into the most likely trajectory based on current emotional, behavioral, and energetic patterns. Human minds brushed against these patterns during sleep because the dream field existed outside the linear flow that governed physical life. Tyrese watched as timelines braided and unbraided themselves. Some paths glowed brightly, indicating high probability. Others flickered, unstable, and easily altered. The dream field allowed consciousness to momentarily stand above these threads, observing potential outcomes the way one might observe roads from the sky. Every prophetic dream was a message, a warning, or a preparation. Sometimes it was a confirmation that a chosen path was aligned. Other times, it was a final call to change direction before consequences hardened into reality. Eryndor revealed a deeper layer. Humans rarely recognized prophetic dreams because they expected clarity, detail, and literal representation. But the dream field often spoke through symbols, not because it wished to hide truth, but because the conscious mind, bound by logic, could not yet interpret direct, non-linear information. A burning house could represent a collapsing relationship. A flooded room could indicate emotional overload weeks before it becomes conscious. A stranger's warning could be the voice of intuition amplified through the dream realm. Tyrese felt the weight of realization. Prophetic dreams were not supernatural anomalies. They were natural functions of a mind temporarily liberated from time. Every human experienced them. The difference lay in awareness. Those who paid attention adapted. Those who dismissed them walked blindly into futures they were shown but refused to acknowledge. The field shimmered and presented one final vision. Multiple versions of Tyrese, each walking down different paths. Some paths led to fulfillment, others to regret. Some carried peace, others burden. Eryndor emphasized that futures were fluid. The dream field did not show fate, it showed consequence. A preview of what would form if the dreamer continued unaltered. The vision faded slowly, leaving Tyrese with an unsettling truth. Prophetic dreams were not glimpses of destiny. They were glimpses of choice. Choice seen from outside the illusion of time. The dream field softened into a muted silver glow, the kind of light that exists only in the quiet moments between worlds. Tyrese felt the atmosphere change instantly. This was not the region shaped by personal memory, childhood innocence, or parallel timelines. This space carried a different weight, gentle yet profound, as though countless whispered stories lingered within it. Eryndor guided him forward without words, and Tyrese sensed that he was approaching a truth humanity had long felt but rarely understood. A ripple moved through the field, and the space unfolded into a vast plain where figures shimmered like reflections on water. They were neither fully solid nor fading illusions. They existed in a state that defied ordinary perception, occupying a layer that felt suspended between presence and absence. Tyrese recognized the feeling before he recognized the forms. This was the realm of dream encounters with the departed. The first figure approached slowly, radiating a warmth that Tyrese had not felt since childhood. The outline was blurred, yet unmistakable. His grandmother. He remembered the dream vividly, the way she had smiled at him, the way he felt real comfort despite knowing she had been gone for years. He had dismissed it as imagination, a construct of longing. But now, standing within the architecture of the dream field, he realized how mistaken he had been. Eryndor revealed that these encounters were not fabricated memories. They were meetings. The dream field contained a neutral layer, a place where consciousness detached from the limitations of physical form. The dead did not linger as ghosts, nor return as solid beings. Instead, their essence remained accessible through the resonance they left in the field. When a dreamer's emotional frequency aligned with that resonance, a bridge formed. Not always, not for everyone, but often enough that millions experienced reunions they could never fully explain. Tyrese watched as multiple figures formed and dissolved throughout the realm. Some embraced dreamers. Others offered guidance. Some simply appeared silently to provide closure that waking life had denied. These encounters felt different from symbolic dreams. There was a clarity, a coherence, a sense of presence that could not be replicated by imagination. Eryndor emphasized that the departed no longer experienced time or emotion the way living humans did. Their presence in the dream realm was not driven by desire or unfinished business, but by resonance, a meeting point where two consciousnesses momentarily aligned. A vision revealed a woman dreaming of speaking to her father, who had passed just months earlier. In the dream, he appeared calm, luminous, speaking with a wisdom he had never possessed in life. Tyrese saw the truth behind it. Death had stripped away the distortions of personality, leaving only essence. The man she met in the dream was not a memory. It was his consciousness in its unburdened form, offering comfort that transcended the limits of his former self. Another dreamer appeared, meeting a younger sibling lost in childhood. The encounter was brief, but the emotional resonance lingered like a warm echo. Eryndor revealed that these reunions were not guaranteed. They required openness, emotional readiness, and a state of dreaming deep enough to access the neutral layer. Fear, stress, or mental noise could block the connection. But for those who slipped through, the meetings were as real as any waking moment. Tyrese felt a profound shift within himself. Grief suddenly appeared not as a wall but as a doorway. He realized that dreams of the dead were never meant to haunt or confuse. They were meant to heal, to offer closure, to remind the living that consciousness did not vanish with the body. The dream field served as a bridge between dimensions, allowing brief reunions that were impossible in waking reality. The silver light brightened around him as the realm faded. Tyrese understood now that the dead were never entirely gone. They waited quietly in the currents of the dream field, not clinging, not chasing, but ready to meet those who dared to close their eyes with an open heart. The dream field dimmed into a deep indigo glow, the color of warnings whispered before a storm. Tyrese felt the shift immediately. This was not a realm of guidance or wonder. It carried a heaviness that clung to his awareness, a vibration that suggested something precious was slipping from humanity's grasp. Eryndor's presence surrounded him like a protective veil, preparing him for a truth that pressed against the boundaries of the waking world. The silence here was not empty. It was mourning. A faint pulse emerged across the expanse, an echo of dream threads fraying. Tyrese watched as the luminous strands that once connected sleepers to the dream field began to flicker. Some snapped entirely. Others dimmed until they were nearly invisible. He sensed the significance instinctively. The dream field relied on participation, on the willingness of human minds to descend into its depths with openness and curiosity. But humanity had begun turning away, not intentionally, but gradually, through distraction, numbness, and the erosion of inner life. Eryndor revealed the first danger. Humans had forgotten that dreams were not entertainment or meaningless noise. They were a navigation system, a compass that guided consciousness through emotional terrain and personal evolution. But modern life trained people to ignore dreams, dismissing them as random chemical reactions instead of messages encoded by their own deeper intelligence. Tyrese watched visions of people waking abruptly, reaching for devices before their dream memory could form. The threads that should have anchored insight dissolved instantly. The dream field offered guidance nightly, but almost no one listened. A second danger emerged. Intuition, once a natural extension of dream perception, was fading. Tyrese saw countless humans ignoring gut feelings, suppressing warning signs, and silencing their inner voice out of fear of appearing irrational. As intuition weakened, people lost their ability to sense danger, opportunity, or alignment. Without the dream field feeding subtle insights into waking awareness, decisions became mechanical, disconnected from the soul's direction. Eryndor revealed how humanity had begun living outwardly while dying inwardly, guided by logic alone, navigating without the very compass designed to protect them. A third danger unfolded before him: loss of inner evolution. Dreams had always served as the arena where consciousness processed trauma, rehearsed transformation, and integrated wisdom. Without dreams, wounds remained unhealed. Lessons remained unlearned. Tyrese watched visions of individuals carrying emotional burdens for decades because they no longer descended deeply enough into the dream field for those burdens to be dismantled. Without dreams functioning properly, the psyche stagnated. The evolution of the inner self slowed until it nearly stopped. A fourth danger revealed itself like a slow bleed. The connection between humans was weakening. The collective areas of the dream field, where humanity once shared landscapes and subconscious communication, were thinning. People no longer synchronized emotionally. Communities fractured. Empathy waned. Without shared dreaming, the threads binding humanity into a unified species grew brittle. Isolation was not just a waking phenomenon, it was becoming a spiritual one. The most devastating danger emerged last. The purpose of dreams was being forgotten entirely. The dream field had always been a bridge to the unseen layers of reality, a place where humans remembered who they were before life hardened them. But as humanity lost touch with its dreams, it lost access to guidance from higher consciousness, messages from ancestors, glimpses of futures, and dialogues with parallel selves. Eryndor revealed that when a species loses contact with its dream realm, it loses its ability to evolve. The body may survive, but the inner world begins to starve. Tyrese felt the truth wash over him like a cold wind. Humanity was not being attacked from outside. It was withering from within. Not because the dream field had abandoned them, but because they had abandoned it. The danger was not nightmares, prophetic visions, or entities in the shadows. The danger was forgetting that dreams were the language of the soul, whispered each night in a world most no longer entered consciously. Eryndor let the silence settle after the revelation, a silence heavy with warning. The dream field was dimming, and if it faded completely, humanity would lose the very mechanism designed to guide its evolution, leaving a species that slept with closed eyes and awakened with closed hearts. The dream field shifted into a calm, moonlit expanse, the kind of stillness that emerges only when truth is ready to be spoken without interruption. Tyrese felt the atmosphere settle around him like a soft cloak, steadying his breath and quieting the lingering tremors from what he had witnessed. Eryndor's presence brightened slightly, no longer carrying the somber weight of warning, but the gentle firmness of a teacher preparing a student for transformation. The realm did not pulse with danger here. It pulsed with possibility. A circular platform formed beneath Tyrese's feet, woven from strands of subtle light. 7 distinct currents slowly rose around him, each carrying its own resonance. Eryndor revealed without words that these currents represented practices, gateways, not techniques that could reopen humanity's access to the dream field. None were complex. None required mysticism. They simply required intention. And that, Eryndor emphasized, was precisely what humanity had forgotten. The first current shimmered softly, radiating the frequency of intention. Tyrese watched as the thread aligned itself with the minds of countless sleepers. Eryndor showed him how setting a single intention before sleep, something as simple as, "I want to remember my dreams," or "I am open to clarity," recalibrated the mind toward the dream field. Without intention, sleep became a fall into emptiness. With intention, it became a doorway. The second current glowed golden, carrying the memory of words written upon waking. Dream journaling. Tyrese saw how writing even fragments of dreams anchored the dreamer's connection to the field, strengthening recall, deepening awareness, and signaling to the subconscious that its messages were being received. The more one recorded, the more the dream field opened. Dreams became clearer, deeper, more structured. Eryndor revealed that journaling was not documentation, it was communication. The third current pulsed with emotional warmth, emotional processing before sleep. Tyrese watched as people paused for a few quiet moments each night, acknowledging whatever emotions weighed on them. The acknowledgement alone softened the storms within the dream field, transforming sleep from a battlefield into a sanctuary. Eryndor emphasized that the mind could heal only what the heart allowed it to feel. The fourth current dimmed into a soft, grounding light. Screen reduction. Tyrese saw how turning off devices at least 1 hour before bed allowed the mind to detox from the artificial overstimulation that disrupted dream pathways. The dream field brightened naturally when not polluted by the residue of digital noise. The simple act of returning to darkness aligned the mind with ancient rhythms it had nearly forgotten. The fifth current flickered with sharp, crystalline clarity. Lucid training. Not complex rituals, but practices like reality checks, mindfulness, and silent observation during the day. These strengthened awareness, making it far easier to recognize dreams while inside them. Lucid dreaming then emerged naturally, not as a rare event but as an expansion of consciousness. Tyrese saw that lucidity was not meant to be rare. It was meant to be remembered. The sixth current radiated a gentle blue warmth, connection rituals. Eryndor showed families, partners, and friends sharing a few sincere moments before sleep, speaking truth, offering gratitude, aligning emotionally. These small acts created energetic coherence that strengthened dream pathways. Humans had forgotten that emotional alignment before sleep shaped the landscape of the dream field more powerfully than any biological factor. The seventh current deepened into a silvery glow. Guidance requests. Tyrese watched dreamers whisper questions into the dark before falling asleep. What should I heal? What should I understand? What direction should I take? The dream field responded when asked. Guides appeared. Answers formed. Prophetic dreams emerged not from randomness, but from invitation. Eryndor revealed that the dream field respected free will. It would offer nothing unless the dreamer asked. As the seven currents circled him, Tyrese felt something shift within. Each practice was simple, but together they formed a pathway back to the realm humanity had abandoned. Eryndor conveyed one final truth. The dream field had never closed its gates. Humanity had simply stopped approaching them with intention. Tyrese stood in the center of the seven currents, understanding fully for the first time that reclaiming the dream realm was not an act of magic or escape. It was a return to the forgotten language of the soul, whispered through the vast, unseen landscapes every human visited each night without realizing the power waiting just beneath their consciousness. The dream field grew unnaturally still, as if all its infinite layers held their breath at once. Tyrese sensed immediately that he was no longer standing within a single landscape, but on the threshold between two realities. Eryndor's presence tightened around him like a quiet safeguard, preparing him for the revelation that would follow. The air thickened, shimmering with tension, and then the field split open in front of him, revealing two divergent timelines suspended side by side. Both were born from humanity's choices. Both waited for humanity's direction. Only one carried life. The first timeline unfolded to Tyrese's left. A soft radiance bathed the landscape, and the threads of the dream field glowed brighter than he had ever seen them. Humans slept deeply and entered dreams with intention. Their dream threads pulsed with vibrant colors, weaving effortlessly into the shared collective layer. Tyrese saw families renewing emotional bonds through nightly connection rituals. He saw individuals waking with clarity, intuition sharpened, and direction strengthened. The dream field nourished them, mirroring the health of their inner lives. Creativity flourished as dreamers returned each morning with insights, symbols, solutions, and strange, luminous knowledge that guided waking choices. In this timeline, intuition became humanity's compass again. Conflicts dissolved before growing into violence, guided by deeper understanding. Empathy strengthened because emotional processing during sleep cleared resentment instead of letting it calcify. Societies evolved toward cooperation, not because of idealism, but because the dream field reminded each mind that separateness was an illusion. Eryndor revealed that this dreaming humanity lived longer, aging slower, disease decreasing, as the emotional body finally healed instead of being ignored. Children retained their innate access to the field into adulthood, becoming translators of wisdom that once belonged only to infants. Humanity rose into a consciousness-driven species, one that remembered it was more than flesh and fear. This was the future aligned with evolution. Then the second timeline emerged to the right, like a dark tide swallowing the horizon. It was silent in a way that chilled Tyrese to the core. The dream field here was dim, collapsing into thin threads that barely held together. Humans slept without reaching the deeper layers. Their dreams were shallow, fragmented, or altogether absent. Without dreaming, their emotional bodies withered. Tyrese watched as intuition flickered out first. People made decisions mechanically, guided only by fear, habit, or external instruction. Creativity dropped, imagination decayed. Children lost access to dream realms before the age of 5. their natural abilities smothered by overstimulation and emotional neglect. Tyrese felt the atmosphere of this dreamless humanity. It was heavy, empty, unsettling. People spoke less, cared less, connected less. Without dreams to cleanse internal conflict, resentment hardened into apathy. Emotional numbness spread through communities like a silent epidemic. Conflict rose, not from passion but from disconnection. In the hospitals, Tyrese saw physicians functioning like hollow machines, treating bodies without seeing souls. In the schools, he saw children staring blankly at screens, unable to imagine worlds beyond what was shown to them. In the homes, he saw families sitting together in physical proximity, but spiritually worlds apart. Eryndor revealed the final outcome of this dreamless timeline: emotional extinction. Humans would continue to exist biologically, but the consciousness that animated them, the spark that made them human, would fade until the species became nothing more than functional shells. No art, no intuition, no inner life. A civilization that survived materially but died spiritually. A world where the lights stayed on, but humanity had gone dark. Tyrese felt the weight of both visions pressing into his awareness. The contrast was devastating. One timeline showed humanity reclaiming its destiny through the very realm it had neglected. The other showed humanity collapsing quietly, killed not by war or disaster but by the slow starvation of the soul. The dream field dimmed as the two futures dissolved, leaving Tyrese standing alone with a truth too heavy to ignore. The fork in the path was not centuries away. It was now, and the deciding factor was not technology, politics, or external threats. It was whether humanity chose to dream again. The dream field collapsed around Tyrese like a vast curtain of dissolving light, folding in on itself until the luminous threads, the visions of parallel futures, and even Eryndor's towering presence shrank into a single point of radiance. For a moment, he felt suspended in absolute silence, balanced between two realities. His consciousness hovered in a space without time, weight, or form, the echo of the alien's revelations vibrating through every hidden corner of his mind. It felt as though the universe itself exhaled, releasing him from the realms he had been shown. And then, everything went dark. A single breath pulled him violently back. Tyrese jolted awake in his bed, lungs straining as if he had been underwater. The room was dim, lit only by the faint glow of streetlights leaking through the blinds. His heart hammered against his ribs, each pulse loud enough to feel in his throat. Sweat clung to his skin, cold and heavy, anchoring him to the physical world with brutal clarity. He turned his head toward the digital clock on his nightstand. 3:13. Only 4 minutes had passed since the moment the distortion began. The encounter that felt like hours, no, lifetimes had unfolded in the span of mere minutes. His hands trembled as he touched his face, half expecting to find remnants of starlight or the imprint of Eryndor's presence still on his skin. But there was nothing. Only the quiet hum of the world he thought he understood. His bedroom looked painfully ordinary. The scattered books on the floor, the unfinished research on his desk, the faint smell of coffee from the night before. Yet everything felt altered, as though the room itself struggled to contain the magnitude of what he had just witnessed. The air carried a subtle vibration, something he knew was not from the waking world. It was the aftershock of truth, settling into his consciousness. A final whisper unfurled inside his mind, gentle but unyielding. Your dreams are messages. Stop ignoring them. Eryndor's voice did not echo. It lived inside the stillness, vibrating through his nerves with a clarity that denied any possibility of misinterpretation. Tyrese sat up slowly, feeling the weight of the words settle into him like a seed planting itself deep within his core. He understood immediately that this was no metaphor. The dream field had not been a hallucination, a symptom of exhaustion, or the creation of a restless mind. It had been a summons. He looked down at his trembling hands and realized they were not shaking from fear. They were shaking from recognition. Every nightmare he had dismissed, every moment of intuition he had silenced, every vivid dream he had chalked up to stress. They had all been attempts at communication, warnings, guidance, invitations ignored because he had chosen the comfort of logic over the discomfort of truth. His heart began to steady as a new clarity crystallized inside him. He was not waking up to the same life he had before he closed his eyes. He was waking up to a mission, not because Eryndor demanded it, but because the dream field had revealed his role in what came next. Humanity was approaching a threshold, a quiet one, a dangerous one, and he could no longer remain a spectator. Tyrese swung his legs over the edge of the bed, feet touching the cold floor as though touching the beginning of a path. He inhaled deeply, the air tasting different, sharper, almost charged. The room seemed to pulse with possibility. The simplicity of waking life felt thin, transparent, barely covering the vast unseen layers he now knew existed beneath it. Sleep would never again be an escape. It would be a doorway, a classroom, a battlefield, a sanctuary. He whispered into the darkness, barely audible even to himself. "I'm listening now." And for the first time in years, he meant it. The night feels different once the truth settles into the places where disbelief once lived. Tyrese speaks in a quiet tone meant for those who are finally ready to hear what most people spend their entire lives avoiding. He explains that the danger was never the dream itself, but the way humans abandoned their own inner terrain and left it undefended. For as long as he can remember, people dismissed the nocturnal world as imagination, symbolic noise, or biology's static. They assumed indifference was harmless. They believed that ignoring dreams carried no consequence. But after everything Eryndor revealed, Tyrese understands that ignoring a dream is not neutrality. It is permission. It is stepping aside so that other forces, unseen and patient, can step in. He speaks with a gravity shaped by first-hand exposure to the dream field, the collective place where consciousness travels the moment the body loosens its grip on waking reality. He tells the listener that something waits there, something that watches each night as billions sleepwalk across thresholds they do not recognize. Most people drift into sleep without intention, without awareness, without even the simple act of claiming their own minds before surrendering them. And in that absence of ownership, something else always arrives to fill the void. He says that dreams are not random visions stitched together by neurons, not symbolic mazes built for entertainment. They are movements. They are journeys. They are reactions to influences the waking mind cannot detect. Tyrese warns that some dreams are pathways crafted for protection, but others are shaped by things that benefit from a distracted human mind. These entities linger at the edge of the dream field, slipping into gaps left by people who do not anchor themselves before sleep. He confesses that he once ignored his dreams, treating them as burdens or glitches, never knowing that by doing so he allowed fear, confusion, and exhaustion to enter unchallenged. Eryndor showed him that consciousness retains its power only when the dreamer participates. When the dreamer does not, something else will. He urges the listener to begin tonight, not tomorrow, not someday, when life feels calmer or curiosity grows stronger. Tonight, he says to slow the breath, close the eyes, and make a single intentional request before crossing the threshold of sleep. Pay attention. Notice what appears. Notice who appears. Notice how the dream shifts when awareness is present. He pleads not for fear, but for ownership, not for paranoia, but for engagement. The dream field is not inherently dangerous, but it is responsive. It listens to whoever arrives with the strongest intention. Tyrese ends with a final warning shaped by everything he learned from Eryndor. Something is always watching when humans dream. Something has always watched. The difference now is that the listener knows, and knowing transforms the dreamer from a passive traveler into a conscious participant. He says the real story begins tonight, in the silence behind closed eyes, where the unseen waits for those who no longer sleep, unaware.